we're celebrating Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah.
Shabbat. What days coming up?
We celebrate Yom Kippur.
Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
Not like that. I'm celebrating with Eric. Alexia. You know Alexia. I celebrate with my daddy and mommy. My parents. With mom and dada. My daddy.
My mom and dad and my brother. I celebrate Grandma and Grandpa, Noah and Aaron. Oh, and two more friends, Ella and Leon.
Say sorry about what you do. Sorry.
Well, that's one way how you can make it lose most things, but that's too much.
I like to eat apples dipped in honey, cheese, waffles, grape juice, chocolate, pizza. I love to have popsicles after dinner.
Sushi every day.
I eat hot dogs all the time. I can't explain that.
Well, now let me think it's fast. I don't really know.
Race cars. The thing is, if you run really fast, or run really fast. Actually, I run so fast. I run really fast. Really fast. Something that you blow. It's a blowing horn. Shofar is something you blow into, and it comes from animals. You blow it.
A shofar is very important. It makes people know it's coming to be a new holiday, Rosh Hashanah.
I'm excited, but I don't love honey the time. Even when I get bigger and bigger, I love honey.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, VBS.
Hello. Hola.
Hola, buenos días.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hey there.
Hi, hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Shana Tova.
And Lashana Tova to our wonderful VBS community. We miss you very much.
Wanted to wish my VBS congregation, my family, our friends, our teachers, and our rabbis a Shana Tova and a Chag Sameach from here in Israel.
Shana Tova! And welcome from the Bernstein Trigo family, from Shosh and Rachel and Sylvia.
Want to wish you all a very happy, healthy, prosperous, good, safe, wonderful New Year.
Shana Tova from the Miller family.
Happy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova from the Horse Bands. Shana Tova.
Hi everyone, we're the Pacino family and we want to wish all of you a Shana Tova.
And we really hope that the new Jewish year, 5781, is a whole lot better than 2020. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova from all the Brocks to our VBS family and all our friends and family everywhere. Love you all.
Zooming from the Kelman family to yours.
We wish you a Shana Tova Umetuka. A good and sweet new year.
Sending out joy, health, and warmth to all.
I certainly hope that we can take these moments of uncertainty, of disarray, and find some solid ground knowing that there's always a sunrise in our life somewhere. Chag Sameach, Shana Tova, Gmar Chatima Tova, much love from the Appalachian Trail.
It was a very difficult year to everybody around the world. However, we have the tikva, the hope, that this coming year will be much, much better to all of us, to all of Israel, and all over the world.
Each year, at the end of Nila, we join together in a common wish. L'Shana Haba'ah Yerushalayim. May we all gather together next year in Jerusalem. This year, we add a special prayer. L'Shana Haba'ah Encino. Next year, together at VBS in Encino.
We wish you a year of good health.
Good health.
Good health and blessings.
Good health and blessings.
And sweet blessings.
And we're so glad you're joining us for the High Holy Days this year. Shana Tova.
Please stay safe, stay healthy, and from all of us at Hazak, Shana
Tova.
Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Hey.
Say Shana Tova.
Happy New Year.
We're celebrating Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah.
Shabbat. All those days coming up.
We celebrate Yom Kippur.
Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
Not like that. I'm celebrating with Eric. Alexia. You know Alexia. I celebrate with my daddy and mommy. My parents. With mommy and dada. My daddy. My mom and dad and my brother.
I celebrate Grandma and Grandpa, Noah and Aaron. Oh, and two more friends, Ella and Liam.
Say sorry about what you do. Sorry.
Well, that's one way how you can make it lose most things, but that's too much.
I like to eat apples dipped in honey, cheese, waffles, grape juice, chocolate, pizza. I love to have popsicles after dinner.
Sushi every day.
I eat hot dogs all the time. I can't explain that.
Hold on, let me think what's best. I don't really know.
Race cars. The thing is, if you run really fast, or run really fast. Actually, I run so fast. I run really fast. Really fast. something that you blow. It's a blowing horn. Shofar is something you blow into, and it comes from animals. You blow it.
A shofar is very important. It makes people know it's coming to be a new holiday, Rosh Hashanah.
I'm excited, but I don't love honey at the time. Soon when I get bigger and bigger and bigger, I'll love honey.
Nine, 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 nine,
My great-grandfather used to say that nothing ever really gets lost. He'd lose his keys or his favorite hat, but then he would say in his older years, I put them in a special place. And what he meant by that is that even though he couldn't find those objects, he'd know they'd show up again. And that there's a difference between misplacing something and losing it. It's optimistic when you think about it, that we can all lose things from time to time, but in order for something to truly be lost, you have to despair over it. You have to give up on it. But the great wisdom of my great-grandfather was, nothing is truly lost unless you let it be. Part because of this deadly pandemic, with wildlands burning, with hurricanes raging, whole neighborhoods flooded by water or burnt down by ash. The whole world seems to be ready to tear itself apart. I've seen families stop talking to each other because of politics. I've seen families torn apart by addiction and by mental illness. So much loss. According to the legend, there was an ancient stone in the city of Jerusalem called Even HaToen, Claim It Stone. Anyone who's lost an object would go there, seeking to find it. And if you found an object, you would bring it there, declaring that you had found that object. And I like to think about that because it's a place in the world where those who have lost and those who had found come seeking each other. In our day, there is no stone. And we could even say there seems like there's no place with all of us hunkered down in our homes apart from each other. But through the wondrous miracle of technology, we can be together virtually. We can hear the words of the Shema or maybe the melody of the Kol Nidre and still have a shared experience, which teaches us that we are still here. VBS is still here. VBS is not a campus or a building. It's in our hearts. It's on our faces when we smile. It is at the corners of our eyes when we cry together. Judaism is a religion not based simply on place. It is based on people and the covenant that we have with each other. The Hebrew word tshuva means to return something that's lost, but it also means to turn away from the loss itself. Turn away lost love. Turn away lost shame. Turn away lost anger and sorrow. As the Torah reminds us on this evening of Yom Kippur and at Kol Nidre, we've all come to the stone to stake our claim and to say that the world is not lost. Life is not lost. Kol Nidre cancels that part of ourselves that feels burnt and broken. Over the next 25 hours, We can be together virtually to pray and to learn and to strive and to hope, but only if we stake our claim and say the world can be good again. Families can heal. Friends can talk. We can find ways of loving and being loved again through the inexhaustible and immortal process of teshuvah, of returning, because nothing is truly lost until we let it be. So let us begin our journey now. Let us gather together as families. Let us gather together the courts of heaven. Let us gather together the courts of earth. Let us rise together, sinners and saints, the broken and the whole, and let us stake our claim that in this world we will return anger with love, darkness with light, and worriness with gratitude. Gamar Chatima Tova. May you be sealed in the book of life. Welcome to Valley Best Shalom, and in case you don't remember me, I'm Rabbi Noah Farkas. I said that jokingly because as much as I'd love to be together, I know we're apart. So if you've chosen to be with us by joining us this year or subscribing to our new platform, or if you find yourself on the couch when you're supposed to be away at college, or if you're listening to us while you're on a walk, or maybe playing a round of golf, or double screening while you're watching that football game, even if you're in front of the refrigerator getting a snack, because you know I can't see you, I'm just so very glad that you are with us tonight. Change is perhaps the hardest thing to do. You can change your hair, and you can change your clothes. You can even change your location. You can change your job. You can change so many things about yourself. But changing yourself is the hardest thing in the world to do. Yom Kippur is all about change. The depth of this holiday is all about how we change on the inside. Kol Nidre is that prayer that opens us up to change. So I ask you, whether you're on the couch or in your room or in the kitchen or on the golf course or out for a walk, take a deep breath and try to find a few moments where you can change over the next 25 hours. We rise now. We join us and a selected group of our former presidents who are all invited to open the Ark virtually as we begin Kol Nidre on page 398.
Bishiva shel mala, o bishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom, ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirin lehitpalel, havareyanim. Bishiva shel mala, Shiva shel mata al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal anu matirin lehitpalel im havareyanim. Bishiva shel mala u'vishiva shel mata al hamakom ve'al dat hakahal anu matirin lehitpalel im havareyanim. וכינוסי ושבועות דין דורנו Amei V'chinoyei V'kinosei Oshavot Din Dorno Orahishtavodno Di asarno nafshatono dinarno olegi shevano odi acharina odi acharina di asarno al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh al yom kippurim haba Kol Icharatna vehon Yehon Sharon Shevitin V'teilin V'mevotalin L'sheririn L'kayamin Idrano La Nidre Sarano La Esare Shemuatana La Shemot V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael V'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishkaga V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael V'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishkaga V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael V'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishkaga Slachna lavon ha'am hazeh kegodel chastecha v'cha asher nasata la'am hazeh miMitzrayim ve'areina v'sham ne'emar vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha salachti Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Shana Tova to everyone. It's really good to see everyone here. Cantor, so grateful to have you with us and your kids who are with us. Marc, Liza, really nice to have you with us too. You may be seated if you're standing. You know, what I've noticed is that the repetition that occurs during this pandemic, that the sense of time just isn't moving at all. There's a monotonous repetition to life now that didn't seem to exist before, and it's been 6 months since we all went inside. Sarah, my wife, and I make a schedule for dinner every week, and it's how we really manage our large family. Monday is meat burgers, Tuesday is tacos. We have an alliteration basically for every day. But most importantly, after 6 months of waking up, cleaning up, and being with the same people, the people we love, that same people every day after day after day, it can get a little tough. And it feels like our lives aren't moving forward. Things aren't getting done, and no progress is being made. It's like we're not going anywhere, and it feels like nothing is really happening. But outside, it feels like everything is happening. It feels like chaos is happening just outside the door. I mean, the Cowboys lost today again, which is like a tragedy in my life. But there's also the COVID plague, and there's fires, there's economic and social unrest, there's earthquakes, hurricanes. This feels like the world is just swirling all the time. And so that's the paradox of this moment, when it feels like everything is happening and it feels like nothing is happening. Who knew that the apocalypse could feel this monotonous? I was at Ralph's, our grocery store, the other day, and I was coming up the escalator from the parking lot, and I saw pumpkins out. And I was totally taken aback. I thought to myself, it can't be time for pumpkins already. It's not the fall. I feel like it's March. But then I realized at the end of the day, time just keeps progressing, and I'm not feeling it. Now, that's because, as human beings, we don't experience time. What we experience actually is change. And there's a difference between the two. Humans don't really have this perception of time, only of change. Aristotle, in his book called The Physics, says time does not exist without change. And he was kind of right. We don't really have a sense of time. We only have a sense of change. Hey, just look at photos from 10 years ago, and you'll get this strange feeling. It's not the time that you're feeling, it's the change. Maybe your tummy was a little thinner, or your hair was a little darker. Maybe the kids were smaller. Maybe there's someone in one of those photos that's not with us anymore. Or maybe there's someone who's not in those photos who's with us now. What you're feeling is not the passage of time. What you're experiencing is change. And that's because that's what you feel. That's how our brains work. We discern and mark change in order to learn and to grow. Now, when you see your high school yearbook picture and cringe like I do, it's because we've changed so very much. And that's why the monotony of being at home feels so hard day after day. And when I saw the pumpkins at Ralph's, I got that same weird, cringy feeling. When did the seasons change, and how did life go by? So we don't feel time, we feel change. And so we've come together at this holy hour, at this holy night. And if you only measure Yom Kippur in terms of time, it can just be like any other day. 24 or 25 hours of another day just like any other day. But the majesty of Yom Kippur is not in its breadth or its length. but its depth. So if you only measure it in terms of time, it won't feel like much. But if you measure it in terms of your ability to change, it can change your life. If you're able to reach out to someone, call someone who's alone, that's a moment of change. If someone you haven't talked to in a long time sends you a text or a message, and you answer it, that's a moment of change. If someone you haven't really come to terms with and you decide to work things out over the next day or so, that's a moment of change. So if you only measure today, tomorrow, in terms of hours, and you're counting a number of hours till you can break fast and hear the shofar, it won't be that powerful for you at home. But if you measure it in your ability to change and be changed, it can change your life. It can be a day full of meaning and of purpose. And so I encourage you over the next day, please try to reach out. Try to change someone else's life. And if someone reaches out to you, try to be changed. So let's begin this journey together as we rise now with the Baruch Hu on page 408. You may be seated. We continue at the bottom of page 408.
תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני. המרעיל הרעים.
Turn to page 410, the Song of Love, Ahavat Olam. Conclude on the middle at the bottom of page 410.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני. אוהב עמו ישראל.
Turn to page 412. We sing the words of Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem Kavod out loud together.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto. את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Please continue silently or join me at the top of page 416.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית, על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, הוריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תתורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת.
We're on page 418.
ומלכותו רצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל, לכנו שירו בשמחה רבה, ואמרו חולון, מי כמוך אלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, אורות תהילות עושי חסד. מלכותך ראו עיניך בוקע היום לפני משה, זה לי אנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני. גאל ישראל.
There once lived a king who announced a prize to the artist who would paint the best painting depicting peace. Many great painters sent in to the king all sorts of different paintings, including friends holding hands, family having a feast, singing together. And there was one painting that was a calm lake, mirroring a beautiful mountainscape with snow and clouds. Beautiful. Overhead was a blue sky. And it would be the kind of painting that the famous public television painter Bob Ross would just die for. And in fact, most of the judges felt like that was the kind of painting that depicted peace. But when the king looked at all the different paintings, the townspeople were shocked at the one that he chose. There were no puffy clouds, no snow-capped mountains, no beautiful lake. Instead, the painting depicted a tempest on the ocean, with dark skies and thunderous clouds and lightning and rocks with breakers. And it looked like the artist was trying to paint a storm and not peace. The judges, when they walked by, the king especially, stopped in their tracks, though, because if anyone were to look closely, they would look nestled into the rocks was a small candle, standing there with a flickering flame that's almost out. But the flame stood tall, resolute, impossible even against the wind, the rain, and the tempest. Or at least implausible. What the king knew and what the story tells us, it shows us that peace maybe is the most implausible thing. Thousands of years of history have shown us that the power to make peace, even amongst the most peaceful nations, have always left some out. Because of slavery, because of war, because of economic inequality. The rabbis knew that each of us are made of flesh and blood and that we were bad vessels for peace. In fact, in the Midrash it says that the power of peace is too heavy for us, as the angels exclaimed, because they can hate and return rage with rage. Now we've captured fire, and we've captured lightning. We've captured wind. We've captured the ocean. We've built bridges. We have built towers. We have moved whole rivers. We have changed the world with great feats of wonder, but we've never found the most wondrous thing in the world, peace. We've put men and women on rockets, crossed the threshold into the sky and into space, but somehow we just seem that it's impossible to escort another human being across the threshold into a home. We can put the power of the world in people's pockets, but we fail to empower those who have nothing in their pockets. We can see each other's faces across the globe in real time, but we refuse to see the face of God crushed under the knee or under the jackboot. No tool ever invented, political system ever created or devised, has ever brought us actual peace. Whether you believe in God or not, believing in the very possibility of peace means imagining a world that we have never actually known. To seek peace, then, is to believe in the most impossible or implausible thing. Yet every culture, every generation, uses our imaginations to look beyond our collective experiences and beyond our history for a different reality, for change, for peace. Like the artist in the story, we imagine a world that seems impossible, yet we hold on with faith that we can build that world with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our might. The Hashkivenu is a prayer that recognizes that peace is impossible without some kind of faith. A faith that reaches out into our imagination, into a world unknown, to something beyond our experience and brings it back into our own. Like the candle against the storm, we ask God for a world that is unknown. The most impossible thing, the most implausible thing, the most elusive thing, but the most promising thing. A world overflowing with peace. Hashkivenu prayer, a prayer for peace, is on page 420.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu lechayim Ofros aleinu Sukkot shelomecha ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים והושיענו למען שמך Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom. Shalom Hashkivenu.
יכפר עליכם, יטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תדהרו, יתקדש שמי רבו בעלמו דיבר חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכו וביומכו ובחיי כל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב וימרו יהי שמירה מברך לעולם ולעולם יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ושומע מתנשא מדבר מתעלה מתעלול שבין קודשו לעילה ולעילה מכל מרגנה משירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ועולמה ואמרו Amen.
We rise together now on page 424 for a minute or two of quiet, private meditation and reflection as we engage in the first of several private prayers on this Yom Kippur. The silent Amidah begins on page 424. There's no prayer that captures the majesty of this day of going from evening to morning to evening like the Ya'aleh prayer. It imagines a world of ascension. It takes the depth of Yom Kippur and brings it right into our hearts. From this evening through the morning and into tomorrow evening, we have one day where we can measure our life with the depth of change. Page 446, the Ya'aleh. The majesty of this day is captured best in the words of El Melech Yoshev, which is on page 454.
El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim. Mitnaheg b'chasidut mochel amanot amo. Marbe mechila lechatayim uslicha lefoshim sinakot im kol basar varuah. El horit alanu lomar shelosh זכר לנו היום ברית 13. יתייצב עמו שם ויקרא לשם
So we turn to page 458. We open the ark and rise for the magic words of Shema Kolenu.
השיבנו אדוני אליך, השיבנו אליך ונשובה, חודש ימינו, ימינו כקדם.
השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חודש ימינו כקדם.
אל תשליכנו, אל תשליכנו
תפשיחנו לעת זקנה, ככל כוחנו אל תעזבנו.
שנה קולנו, אדוני אלוהינו, ורחם עלינו. וקבל ברחמים ומרצון את
As the ark is closed, we turn to page 462 as we remain standing for the Confessional, the Vidui, the words of Ashamnu.
Let me have major key, Chris.
Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu dofi, Epidu, Vahirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Kafalnu sheker, Yatsnu ra, Tizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niyatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Hashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tihavnu, Tahinu, Titanu.
We turn to page 466 for the Al-Chet. We'll read responsively.
Al-Chet shegatanu lefanecha באימוץ הלב על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בביטוי שפתיים על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בגלוי ובסתר
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדיבור
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדיבור
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בהרהור הלב על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בווידוי פה
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בווידוי פה
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזדון ובשגגה
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בזדון
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם
על-חטא שחטאנו לפניך בחילול השם
ועל כולם ארע סליחות סלח לנו מחלנו תעבר לנו ועל כולם ארע סליחות סלח לנו מחלנו סלח לנו
Continue in English on page 467. We have sinned against you by foolish talk,
And we have sinned against you knowingly and unknowingly.
We have sinned against you by bribery.
And we have sinned against you by slander.
We have sinned against you in eating and drinking.
And we have sinned against you by false pride.
And together for all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement. We have sinned against you by wanton glances.
And we have sinned against you by effrontery.
We have sinned against you by perverting justice.
And we have sinned against you by envy.
We have sinned against you by being stubborn.
And we have sinned against you by talebearing.
And we have sinned against you by causeless hatred.
And we have sinned against you by confusion of values.
And together for all these sins, O God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, and grant us atonement. Standing now as we open the Ark on page 472 for Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, ein lanu melech ela ata. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu besefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu Sefer Geula Vishua. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodveinu Sefer Parnasa V'Chalkala. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodveinu Sefer Zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodveinu Sefer Selicha U'Mechila. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodveinu Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, ki ein banu masim. Asei banu, tzedaka v'chesed. Asei banu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Asei banu,
the Ark is closed, you may be seated. Kaddish Shalem is on page 476.
Yitkadal ve'yitkada shamei rabba ve'alma divrach Yerushalayim nichmal chutei b'chayechon u'myomechon chayhol beit Yisrael b'agalav mizman karim v'himro Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'alam le'almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach Vayitbar v'yitronam v'yitnaseh V'yithanor v'yitale v'yitalal shemeinu kudesho לעילה ולעילה מכל ברנה ושירתה תושבחנה ונחמתה דמירם מימה מהימרו תקבל צלוד הונו ועוד הון ישראל קודם אבן משמעי והימרו יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיים וחיים עלינו בין כל ישראל והימרו עושה שלום במרומה יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן יעשה שלום שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל 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 יעשה שלום שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
Very nice, Cantor. Very nice. You can put your machzors away for a minute and put them down. You can sit on the couch, snuggle next to someone you love. Bring your dog over, put him on your lap. I'd like to share a few words with you this evening. I woke up nervous and excited this morning. I'm just so excited and nervous about life and excited about the future. Excited and nervous about all the possibilities in my life. And excited and nervous about that the holidays are actually here. And excited and nervous because I'm doing something right now that I have no idea how to do. And I think we're all going through this together. This global pandemic has changed all of us permanently. Every Jewish institution, every temple, every minyan, every school, every camp has been challenged and changed by the world that we are now living in. We don't know yet how exactly it has changed us, but we know that we have been changed, which is why it's so nerve-wracking, but also so very exciting. When I think about change at this level, my mind immediately goes to art. You see, art is the highest expression of change. Every artist takes something from the world, whether it's a canvas or color or paint or stone or wood or maybe bits of sound or voices, and changes it. And the artist manipulates those elements of inspiration and creates beauty, creates music, creates a masterpiece, creates life. My favorite contemporary artist who does this better than I think anyone else is the Israeli artist Sigalit Landau. Now, her work sits in some of the most prominent museums in the world, but her work is so indigenous to the land of Israel. You see, she became famous by deciding to take everyday objects, a dress, a boot, a play toy, and use the salinization process only located at the Dead Sea to transform those objects into crystalline sculptures. Her most famous piece is called the Salt Dress, where she takes a Victorian dress and submerges it at the bottom of the Dead Sea for an entire year and takes photos periodically to watch the salinization and crystallization process. And what comes out is a glimmering, salt-covered masterpiece. You can go look it up online after the sermon. Now, over that year, the dress transformed and hardened, turning from that burgundy color to that gray-white crystalline color as the salt began to stick and build up on the fabric. When asked about her work, she said the most amazing thing. She said that art is a bridge builder, always looking for new materials to connect the past with the future. Her salt dress is perhaps the best example of an ancient and storied place, the Dead Sea, put together with another historical object of the Victorian dress. And when you combine them together, the process itself creates something completely new. Landau takes inspirational elements of the past, and creates a future. Which is what I want to speak to you about tonight, about the future and the incredible moment that we are in right now. We're entering a new, permanent epoch in Jewish life. This global pandemic has changed all of us permanently. And again, we don't know how it's changed us yet, but we know we're being changed, which is why it's so nerve-wracking and yet so exciting. This is not the first time we've been changed permanently. We changed in the 8th century before the Common Era when the Assyrian Empire came to the northern kingdom. And then again, 150 years later, this time when the Babylonians came and they sacked Jerusalem for the first time. And then again, 70 years later when we returned and we rebuilt our home and our city. 600 years after that, this time it was the Romans who came and sacked Jerusalem. And then 2,000 years later, we came out of the ghetto. And 150 years more after that, we were forced back in to the Tofets of Auschwitz. But just a couple of years after that, we went from the edge of destruction to the birth and redemption, and we came home for the third time to the state of Israel. Now, I bring all this up because each of these periods of changes created the most immaculate form of art with new forms of Jewish life. In the old kingdoms, no one knew what it meant to go into exile. But the prophets like Amos and Hosea in the north and Jeremiah and Ezekiel in the south wrote beautiful metaphors about a life completely unknown. And during the Roman siege, when the temple was being burned, nobody knew what a post-temple Judaism was supposed to look like. But the rabbis took up the pen and crafted the Mishnah, the Midrash, and the Talmud, forming a new Jewish life. And in the modern period, new forms of expression rose in philosophy, music, and art. New cultural institutions were built. New synagogues rose. New schools were created. New camps were created. And even in the Shoah and the Holocaust, there was art. Words of Torah written and buried. Poetry scribbled on wrappers. Drawings made on the bottoms of bunks. And with the rebirth of the nation, Eliezer ben Yehuda took a language that had not been heard in the streets for 2,000 years and crafted something entirely new from the old. More words will be written in Hebrew in the coming week than in the entirety of Jewish life since the fall of the temple. Just think about that. The city of Tel Aviv itself, the name Tel Aviv, literally means to spring forth, new from the old. The craft of Jewish life is to keep changing, but to take what was and to create the art of what will be. To take not yesh me'ein, not creatio ex nihilo, not something from nothing, but yesh miyesh, to take something and to make it into something new. Today's global challenge might be different in kind, but not in substance. We stand at the turning point of another epoch. No one has lived in our contemporary world before we have. No one before has seen or been connected so globally. No one before has had the world at their fingertips. No one has lived the Jewish life that we live now except for us. And it's our turn in this moment to take what was and to create yesh miyesh, from the old to the new. So I'm nervous and I'm excited, and I want you to be too, because this moment right now, tonight, is the night that we can all become artists by using the best of the past to fuel the future. There are 3 powerful ideas that I want to focus on tonight that craft our future of as a Jewish community that I'm going to speak about. All of them are endemic to our past, but like Landau's salt dress, they speak to us of our ancient history and create that bridge that gets us from the past to the future. And all are found in the life and history and story of the central character of Yom Kippur, Aaron, the high priest. So who was Aaron? The first time we meet Aaron is when Moses was already fled Egypt to a place called Midian. We didn't even see him. We didn't even know that Moses had a brother named Aaron. Earlier in Exodus, we know that Moses had a sister because she saw him go down the river. But Aaron's not mentioned until Moses is standing in front of the burning bush and is arguing with God about what to do next in Jewish life. God says to Moses, I want you to go down to Egypt and free the slaves. And Moses says over and over again, Bi Adonai shelach na biyad tishlach. Please, God, please send someone else. But only then God, almost out of frustration, honestly, said, okay, send your brother, Aaron the Levite, because I know he speaks easily. Oh, and by the way, even now, he's setting out to meet you. Let that sink in for a minute. Even now, he's setting out to meet you. Where did Aaron come from? He seems to have only showed up at the very moment when history was changing, as a new epoch of Jewish life was being formed, when God called and Moses answered by saying, no, thank you. Aaron was already on his way, even now, setting out to meet you. No one could imagine a new future of what it meant to be a free Jew in that moment. But Aaron felt differently. He didn't know the details, but he knew he had to move, to act, to take a step, and then another. Moses demurred. Moses waited. Aaron set out. He acted. And that's the first piece of the puzzle. To act and not to react. For generations, Jewish life in America has been built on reaction. Reaction to our immigration and assimilation. Reaction to our near annihilation and self-determination. Reaction to our suburbanization and our new urbanization. And reaction to a growing Jewish populace with a declining Jewish engagement. Reaction, reaction, reaction. And in each case, those who acted boldly shaped the Jewish future. Whether it was Isaiah or Jeremiah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai or Solomon Schechter or Kaplan or Heschel, or Schulweis, for that matter, they chose not only to react, but they chose to act, to move, to already be on the way. The future is in the hands of the bold. It belongs to those who get up and go, those who are already on the way. We as Jewish community can simply react to this pandemic and move a few things online or make a few phone calls, which we've done amazingly, thousands of phone calls, hundreds of videos. But what this moment calls for, I believe, is truly monumental. And we can't simply take small strides. We must act boldly. Instead of reacting to life around us, we must be like Aaron and be proactive and create the Jewish future that is ahead of us. We must create. We must act. We must already be on the way. No one knew that we could travel the entire world in a few hours until someone or some people discovered how and then created the machine that enabled us to do that. No one knew that we could connect people globally in an instant until someone discovered it and created the networks that allowed us to do it. No one knew that we can put an entire world in someone's pocket until someone discovered how and then created it. The present we live in, every single thing was created by the past, who they decided to craft our collective future. So the question is not, do we create futures? The question for you and the question for me is, whose future do you want to live in? We will live in a world dreamed up by someone else, or else we'll live in a world maybe manifested by our own dreams. The future is in the hands of those who are bold, which is the first piece of the puzzle, is to act and not react. The second idea comes about by thinking about risk. The extraordinary artist and strategist Debbie Millman spoke at San Jose University a few years ago and said this. She said, If you imagine less, then less will be what you undoubtedly deserve. Far from being just a piece of Pollyannish advice, Millman's words of advice track closely what psychologists know about our mindset of success. If you don't imagine a future, even one that might fail, you'll never have a future to begin with. When the Israelites were freed from Egypt and made it across the desert to Mount Sinai, they encamped at the foot of the mountain and waited, and waited, and waited. After 40 days, the people got tired of waiting, and they went to the only person who knew how to act to create the future. They came to Aaron, and he built them a golden calf. Now, Aaron's first attempt at creating a future Jewish life in this new epoch was a total failure. I mean, think about it. The bold liberator became the cowering idolater. And at every moment when the covenant, at that very moment when the covenant was on the line, when it was about to be delivered from the mountaintop, Aaron broke faith and stepped away from his relationship with history, relationship with God, and the relationship with the Jewish people. In the book of Proverbs, it states, "The righteous fall 7 times and will rise, while the wicked are tripped up by a single mistake." What King Solomon is teaching is that those who are truly good, those who are righteous, those who want to build a future, those whose story of themselves is one of the success will fall 7 times. Fall because you're tired or not ready. Fall because you held back when you should let go. Fall because you said something you shouldn't have. Fall because you made a bad decision. Fall because you embarrassed your friend or your partner. Fall because you embarrassed yourself. Fall because you broke a promise. Falling only becomes failing if you don't get back up. The weak stay down. The bold rise. Futures are born out of failure. Bob Dylan lost his first high school talent competition to a tap dancer. Michael Jordan was cut by his high school basketball team. Oprah Winfrey was cut from her co-anchoring job of the news in Chicago. Now, the lesson might be get over high school. That's a great lesson. But a deeper lesson is that failure shows us our limits, and then we can break through them and rise. And that's how we change to succeed. Once Aaron faced his failure, possibly the greatest failure of the book of Exodus, he was able to push through his limits and create again. Instead of a calf, he built a temple. And instead of an idol, he built the priesthood. And instead of the idolatrous, every person for themselves, he gave us the book of Leviticus, which says, love your neighbor as yourself. Through failing and falling, you can rise to great success. And at this new epoch of Jewish life, we too must risk failure. We have to make bold moves to craft the future, risk changing how we pray and how we learn. We must risk how to express Jewish identity. We must risk pushing past our limits of who to include. Without failing, without falling, we can never rise. Because if we imagine less, then less is what we deserve. And the future is in the hands of the bold. Now, before we get too revolutionary, we need to understand the third idea of how to approach this moment in Jewish life. In every epoch, there are visionaries, prophets, thinkers, and artists, rabbis, who have used the Jewish past to fuel the future. And again here, we can turn to Aaron's life, especially on this day, on Yom Kippur, which is so holy. On the very, very first Yom Kippur, Aaron, who's now grown, to see his nations freed, to see that golden calf and the consequences. He's now older in years. In fact, he outlives his own children. He stands at the outer court of the Mishkan. He puts on special clothes to the holy altar in order to go in on Yom Kippur, as the book of Leviticus says, to make atonement on behalf of himself and the nation. Aaron, the former slave, the liberator, the idolater, now comes before God and stands in the most singular of places on the most singular of days, on Yom Kippur, 3,114 years ago today. He brought everything with him: his shame, his sin, his failure, and his success. Everything. And he put it on the altar, and he lit it on fire, and he burned it up, but not away. The fire that Aaron created upon the altar on the first Yom Kippur allowed him to use the past as kindling to light up the future. And in doing so, Aaron sets himself free, sets his family free, he sets everyone free. Because we were never truly free from Egypt until that moment of atonement, that moment of moving from past to future. The depth of Yom Kippur, the depth of this day, from its very beginning, tells us that our past is the fuel for the future. Our Torah, our community, our values are all there as primal elements to craft the next version of Jewish life. They're sacred. They deserve to be placed at the center of Jewish life. And because they are so important, they should be used by the next generation to craft a holy and sacred life for themselves. Jews of younger generations have changing attitudes about what it means to belong, what it means to connect, how to be Jewish, act Jewish, and live Jewish. Many of these younger Jews are eager to learn. We, their parents, have been successful in teaching them about Judaism, but they, like Aaron, want to take what we have taught them and to create something new. They, like Aaron, want to burn up the past, but not burn it away, to use the past to fuel the future. We cannot be afraid to invest in the ideas of the next generation because we are afraid of the kind of Judaism that might emerge. We cannot let the past be an anchor because an anchor weighs you down. Rather, we should let it be an altar to allow the next generation to soar. The Talmud teaches, quoting the book of Isaiah, "V'chol banayach limudei Adonai v'rav shalom banayach." The children who learn of the Lord will then shall be great in peace. The Talmud continues, though, do not read the word banayach as banayach, rather bonayach. Do not read them as children, but rather as builders, meaning the children, the next generation that has now learned of us, of our people, of our history. They know our past. We have to let them build the future. The question is no longer just what should we want to hold on to from our past, but what from the past can be the fuel for the future. We can use our long history, our tradition, its maxims and its mitzvot, its incredible rituals, and its most powerful notions of justice to create Jewish life anew. And if you're involved in Jewish life, first of all, thank you. But secondly, you should find a young person that inspires you and you should invest in her. If you are a leader, whether professional or volunteer, take the risk by finding the bold ones and give them the space to create, because the future is in the hands of the bold. Aaron was an artist. He knew he needed to act and not react, to risk our everything, which includes utter failure, so that we could all rise, and to not to ignore the past, but to use it as the primary colors to create a new Jewish life. That is what artists do. That is what Aaron did, and that is what we should do. They take the world as it's been presented to them, they take it into themselves, and they change it, manipulate it, and create a masterpiece, create life anew. What this moment in Jewish history calls for is what it's called for at every single turning point: vision, risk, and boldness. And above all, the creative act of taking something that was and forming something new. Yesh mi yesh. The task is daunting, but we shall not be daunted. And while we don't know exactly how to do it yet, we have the millennia of experience and the permission of Aaron's life and the rabbi's life and the prophet's life and Heschel's life and Schulweis's life and Kaplan's life to try to do it, because we must. So let us go from one holy time to another, as the Talmud reminds us, from one holy place to the next, from strength to strength. Let us build now what is next in Jewish life together. And every time we face this moment, we've created a new Jewish life, a Jewish life anew. For the future has always been and will always be in the hands of the bold. Gamar Chatima Tova. I wish all of you a sweet, happy new year. May we be sealed in the book of life. We rise together on page 478 for the words of Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שבונו תשמיים ונאמר והיורוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, 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 יהיה אדוני אחד. ביום ההוא, 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 יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Even in our greatest moments of joy, we take just a minute at the end of every service to remember those who are no longer with us, those who have passed on, grateful so deeply for the gift of their lives and what they've cherished and what we've cherished knowing them. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 482, and if you're in mourning or just want to say Kaddish or you're observing a yortzeit, please rise as I recite the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
Be'omad divrach hirotei ve'amich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbi mevarach le'olam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitermam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudshah brichu. Le'ela le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran b'yama v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mermav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May God give comfort to you and your family if you are in mourning. And together we say, amen. Amen. You may be seated. Cantor Baron, it is so nice to see you, and it's so great to see you, Marc, and great to see you, Liza. And Chris, really great to see you down there. I'm sorry you're behind plexiglass, but that's how the world is, I guess. And I hope everyone at home has had a wonderful and joyous, and hopefully the beginning of this process of change for Yom Kippur. Tomorrow morning is a traditional service which begins at 8 a.m. right there on the platform. And you can also see a Tat Shofar service for ECC families. And you can see at 10 a.m. is the B'Yachad family service. And at 10 o'clock a.m. is our main service, which will be led by all the rabbis together. And also, don't forget to always stroll through that virtual lobby. And there will be a sermon and a Yizkor service around 11:30 or so, which will be simultaneous to some children programming that are on Zoom, accessible through vbs.org. Essentially saying is we're taking everything that happens on campus over the course of a Yom Kippur morning and we put it on this platform. So hopefully you feel it's as busy as it is on Yom Kippur, except of course you don't have to validate your parking, you don't have to fight the parking lot next door, you don't have to fight the parking lot in the Wells Fargo building, you don't have to walk down the block, you don't have to block my driveway at home. You can just be here and enjoy Yom Kippur together. Cantor, I know you have a couple things tomorrow after services. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, just one actually, a afternoon meditation at 2 p.m., a Yom Kippur meditation, which is entitled Teshuvah, Return in Love.
Can you tell me what does that mean, meditation? What is that?
Aha. So, people don't realize that meditation is an important part of Jewish history. We've been doing it kind of since the very beginning. And there are many gems in the Machzor and the Siddur that will take you to a very spiritual place. And we tend to often overlook these things in our regular services. But particularly beginning in the late 18th century, we really started to do meditation in a serious way to try to reach a deeper spiritual place. And hopefully I could be your guide for that journey.
Well, I'm really glad that you've been studying this for the last few years and are launching a spirituality center, and it has to be online right now, but can't wait till we can do it in person. Also, throughout the afternoon, we have a number of study sessions. Rabbi Hoffman is teaching a really amazing piyut called Patach Lanu Sha'ar, Open Our Gates, praying for vulnerability, and it's at 3 p.m. I'll be teaching a short study session at 4 p.m. on the words and history of Avinu Malkeinu. Rabbi Feinstein is going to be reciting some of the teachings of Jonah, and our former president and longtime VBS member, Irv Weintraub, actually is going to have a presentation of davening Jonah. There's a number of other resources online, number of other faculty, I guess, semi-faculty, adjunct faculty, I guess, if you will, who all have sessions online that will be up, ready for you to experience Yom Kippur all day long, so that you don't hear that still small voice of the refrigerator calling you to open and to get something out of the refrigerator. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. Now, we do have mincha, and traditional mincha and ne'ilah will begin around 5:30, and you can watch at vbs.org. And we encourage everyone, if you have those little gift bags, to grab those glow sticks and join us for a community family ne'ilah, which will be on Zoom and it'll be on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And you can also see it at watch.vbs.org. And that starts at 6:45 p.m. with the final sounding of the shofar at 7:18 p.m. And it's BYOBF, which means to bring your own breakfast. And I just want to wish everyone again, thank you to you and to the singers. Thank you to all of our singers tonight. Thank you to Chris. You can't see Brian, but Brian's out here helping us. And so thank you to you. You can't see Steve, but Steve's in the booth. Thank you to you. And please thank you to everyone who's decided to join us by hook or by crook, by volunteer or not. It's just really great to have all of you here. We're going to conclude our service now on page 486 with Yigdal.
אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא והנד אל מציאותו, אחד בן יחיד כי ייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו, אין לו דמות הגוף ואין אשר נברא ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורד גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא ומביט את אמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לעמו, אל היד נביאו נאמן ביתו, מתים יחייהם ברוב חסדו, לעתים יחייל ברוח עשו ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו.
Gemar Chatima Tova and Shana Tova to everyone. May you all be sealed in the book of life.
Gemar Tov.
Gemar Tov. Gemar Tov.
We're celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah. Shabbat. What day coming up? We celebrate Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur. Not like that. I'm celebrating with Eric. Alexia. You know Alexia. I celebrate with my daddy and mommy. My parents. With mommy and dada. My daddy. My mom and dad and my brother. I celebrate grandma and grandpa, Noah and Aaron. Oh, and two more friends, Ella and Leon. Say sorry about what you do. Sorry. Well, that's one way how you can make it. But there's most things, but that's too much. I like to eat apples dipped in honey, cheese, waffles, grape juice, chocolate, pizza. I love having popsicles after dinner. Sushi every day. I eat hot dogs all the time. Let me think it's fast. I don't really know. Race cars. The thing is, if you run really fast, or run really fast. Actually, I run so fast. I run really fast. Really fast. Something that you blow. It's a blowing horn. Shofar is something you blow into, and it comes from animals. You blow it. Oh, a shofar is very important. It makes people know it's coming to be a new holiday, Rosh Hashanah. I'm excited, but I don't love honey the time. Soon when I get bigger and bigger, I'll love honey.